There we go. All right. And we are here with Shikaina Jacob, Christian musician, songwriter, singer, all around great music person, I guess we could say. So,
Thank
how's things going?
Things are going well. Had a bit of a hectic week. It's been good though. Last week I released Body Soul, my second single off the album.
Right.
So that was exciting, but as you can imagine, very hectic as well. And I was just telling you earlier that my laptop broke down.
Yeah.
It broke down literally an
Not
hour
a good day for your laptop, it
No,
appears.
no. And it happened the day that I was releasing, 2 hours before the release. So
Oh no.
it was a huge whirlwind, but it's fine. It still went well. So
that's right. That's right. You have to trust in the process a little, I guess.
Yeah.
Is this the same laptop that you were so eager about in your BTS for all this time?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that makes me. First of all, very happy that you watched the vlogs. So thank you.
I did my research. What can I say?
And yes, it is the same laptop, which is why I'm like beyond baffled, because it's new.
Yes.
And I took it to the shop, and they cannot tell me. They literally said they don't know why it just stopped working.
Wow.
And yeah, so who knows? Who knows?
Maybe he needs an exorcism instead of a
Yeah, I was thinking that. I was literally like, is this from the dark side?
Right.
For no reason at all.
You never know sometimes, right? With technology, it can go either way sometimes.
Oh, for sure.
Oh boy. So your new single, so Body Soul, very good song. Love the melody in that. It was great. One of the things I like is how it starts off very nice and simple. Like there's a guitar playing the intro, and then just voice and keyboards, and then it just kind of develops into a more electronic kind of direction. So very neat progression in the song throughout there.
Thank you. Definitely will have to give credit to Patrick, my producer. He's been very good. Definitely, I call him a synth wizard, and he's been really good at arranging it in a way that, yes, brings out the song, but also has this sort of unique electronic, but also not like it just has its own vibe, which is more like the chill hop vibe and all of that. So he's definitely credit goes to him for that, for sure.
Yeah, the melody does have a bit of it's a bit traditional in a way too. It's like something that you could sing on, like sort of one of these old standards kinds of things. Like the melody could stand on its own in a way.
Yes, thank you. Yes. It's funny, Body Soul has gone through different versions of it. I have actually different recorded versions of it. There's a very simple sort of vocal and guitar version of it, where it's just me and I don't know if you remember Dave. He performed Body Soul. So he also performed Body Soul. This was 10 years ago. So that was the first iteration of it. And then I had a second recording stage of it where it was a funk band playing behind it. And then there was a sort of more jazz band behind it. And then it went to an EDM, which is when I started working with Patrick. So it has the first, I think the first released version of it was in 2016 as an EDM track. And then now it has a much more, I'd say, a very current sound, even though it's one of those songs that can fit with any kind of instrumentation. So
exactly. That's when you know you have a good one.
Yay! Thank you.
So tell me about how this version came about.
Well, I had released the EDM version of it in 2016, and it was always meant to be in a in a body of work, like an album.
Yes.
And there were certain circumstances during that time that prevented me from doing that. And it actually halted me from doing music altogether for a number of years.
Mhm.
And last year, when the pandemic hit, I really felt God bringing me back to that place where he was like, this is what I had given you, this gift to do music, and you need to do something with it.
Mhm.
And it was bringing back that joy to create that I had lost for so long. And so the first place I wanted to start was with Body Soul. And even though it's the second one that I released, it was the first one that we had worked on.
Oh yeah.
And I wanted to work with Patrick. So I actually called Patrick again, who is my producer. I also hadn't talked to in a while.
Mhm.
And we reconnected, and we both, we were talking, discussing the album, we both really thought that Body Soul needed another chance
Yeah.
to be part of something too. And we are remaking it not because it was lacking in the past, but because we
Right.
wanted to fit into this new um, this new sort of compilation that we're doing. Yeah, so that's why it's here.
Well, it's good to reimagine some of your stuff sometimes, even if it's just like as a songwriting kind of exercise. It's good. It kind of works your songwriting chops a bit to kind of
Yeah,
revisualize what you're doing, you know.
absolutely. Yeah.
But that's good that you heard that that calling from God. I kind of gone through the same thing too, where you know, I had been playing cover bands and that kind of thing, and I thought, well, you know, why not write songs with a Christian message and you know, kind of get that out there. So you know, I guess if we have like our own talents in that way, sometimes you know, we just kind of feel the call and respond to it.
100%. Yes,
Hmm.
I agree. And you know, one of the things that was just so pointed towards me was, you know, God um, has like art. It doesn't matter if you're a singer or a painter or anything. Um, Art conveys a message that's beyond words, you
Hmm.
know, and it can convey thoughts and emotions that are so big and vast. And that's a powerful tool that he can use to do his work in the world. So,
Right.
and that's why it's so important, the calling that he puts on us, and why we just can't give up.
Exactly. Exactly. It's good to get the word out there, basically.
Yes,
Mhm.
100%.
I was wondering if you could kind of walk us through the lyrics behind Body and Soul. Some of them are quite interesting.
Yes,
Am I right that there's a bit of eschatology in there, or am I off?
1,000%. Wow, good job for spotting that. Yeah, it's
Well, the whole
like a
thing
book
about
talk.
like, you know, when you mention about coming on the clouds and that sort of thing, I mean, that's very biblical imagery. So yeah, so I mean, that's the way it struck me. So tell us a bit more about the lyrics.
Absolutely. So I wrote the song because I was reading Revelations,
Hmm.
and it talks about Jesus coming like a bridegroom
Yes.
for his wife, which is the church,
Yep.
and that anticipation, that waiting, but that refining in the waiting. And
Hmm.
also, you know, that's what I wanted to truly highlight in all of this.
Hmm.
So it starts with, darling, I'm standing on the edge of the earth, waiting for your love to rise again. So it's sort of saying, at the end of everything, at the end of all of this, I am out here sort of waiting for you. Um,
Hmm.
Waiting for your love to rise again. And then, oh man, darling, I'm standing on the edge of the earth, waiting for your love to rise again. Waiting for your chariot to ride in. Again, that's
Yes.
literally straight plucked out of scripture, where
Hmm.
in Revelations, again, it talks about Jesus coming, riding on a chariot of, I think it's chariot of fire, or
Hmm.
something very dramatic in that sense,
Right.
and sort of this big um, entrance that he's coming in on. Um, and then it says, "Darling, I'm seeing your visions in the clouds. I'm calling your name and it resounds." And that's also from scripture where his people will shout, and when they see that, they're going to call on the name of Jesus and be sort of caught up in rapture. And then body, soul, dripping in
Well,
gold.
so the coming in the clouds too has reference to Daniel as well. And that's
Yes.
something that Jesus himself mentioned at his trial. You will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds.
Yes.
So it all ties in.
100%. It's multiple layers of eschatology in there, for sure. For the chorus, it's body, soul, dripping in gold on the altar, burning for you. And that's all. I wish I had my laptop with me because I had all the verses written down, but that is from, I think it's a Romans passage, correct me if I'm wrong, where it's about becoming living sacrifices for the Lord.
Right.
Yeah. And it's also the verses where it talks about being refined.
Yes. Is that where the gold comes in?
Yes. Yes. Being refined into gold.
Right. Because that's another place that scripture speaks to a lot, is you see the imagery, I think it's in Job as well, about gold being refined. So you have this this metal that's very beautiful, that's very precious, but it has to be refined first. It has to go through the fire and be purified, and then at the end of the process you have this beautiful shiny thing, right? So so that's the way that lyric struck me. That's immediately
100%. 1,000%. The nail on the head. There's also the thought of like when you are finally refined and you get to you become usable tools for God.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
There's a reason why you're refined. You're not just a pretty object. You're going to be a tool in God's kit to be used for other things. So that's sort of that sort of extra part, not necessarily in the lyrics, but in the thought of it. Yes, and then I think it goes, that body, soul, dripping in gold on the altar, burning for you. Body, soul, let me be your treasure. So that line is from, it's very obvious that I think God treasures us. When we are his people, he 1,000% treasures us, and that's why he's the bridegroom coming for his bride. That's his prize. We are his prize. So that part, and then the second verse, darling. Man, I'm blanking out. Do you know what the second?
I don't remember what the second verse was, but I was interested in the body soul imagery, and so I guess, are you there just sort of talking about the whole totality of what we are, like the body and soul? We give that up. Is that kind of what you're going for? Or?
Yeah, I know that there's sort of Baptist.
You're allowed to tell me that I'm wrong, by the way.
Oh no, you're completely right. It's funny because there's part of my head, because I was raised Baptist, is like, no, there's the soul, the spirit, and the body.
Yes.
You know what? Whatever. It's what I mean is that it's the whole thing. It's everything that we are is given over to the Lord.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I noticed that you're just as sort of a side note, going by like on your YouTube channel as Shikaina. So are you hoping to do the one single name thing like Madonna and Sting?
This is the big debate. I don't know. I was going by Shikaina for just some time, like for a while. And then recently I was like Shikaina Jacob. I don't know if I want to keep it now. I'm confused. I really love my last name. I do really like my last name. So that's the big debate. I don't know. What's your take on it?
I think branding is everything these days. So if you can keep it simple, then go for it. like people still know that Sting is Gordon Sumner and stuff. That doesn't change and stuff. But the way you present yourself to the world matters, and I think having something that's simple and catchy is a good thing. And it doesn't really forsake your heritage to do that. It took me a while to come up with like Led by the Shepherd as a band name. These are things that, yeah, you want something catchy and something that the world will remember. And yeah, so I say go for it. Give it a
Okay,
try.
let's get rid of, let's drop the second the
Yeah,
second name.
that's
Oh,
right.
that's gonna be interesting. How do I even? You know what? I was thinking that when I was releasing Body Soul, I was like, wait, why did I
Yeah.
choose Shikaina Jacob? But I was like, okay, let's just go with it at least for now, and maybe the next release it'll just be Shikaina. Hopefully, it doesn't
Yeah.
confuse anyone out there.
The important thing is to be consistent.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, darn it.
Yeah, that's right. Well,
It's
keep
fine.
at it. It's a process, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But back to the lyrics a bit. So that is interesting. The notion of like you saying about being living sacrifices and stuff, that does help to clarify, because the wording about like altars and stuff, that was one thing that I was wondering about. But when you view it in the context of sort of being a sacrifice to God, living sacrifices to God, then that does help to sort of make sense and see what direction the song is going in.
Right. It's also there's a duality there. I don't know if people see that, where it's also the imagery of a wedding.
Oh yeah,
So
I
it's
see
it's
it.
both two things, a sacrifice
Right.
and a wedding, if that makes that sort of ties into things.
Yeah. Very clever. Very clever. um, so now I'm curious though. What is your songwriting process like? Do you have a process?
Yes and no. I like to spill my guts on the floor um, if that resonates with anyone, and then I edit things down, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't do sort of lyrics first, music later sort of thing. Or vice versa. They both come together
Mm-hmm.
um, in some weird way, and I'm not an instrumentalist. I'm trying to learn the piano
Oh, really?
very just enough to accompany myself, but I'm not an
Mm-hmm.
instrumentalist at all. So a lot of the things that I come up with are just things in my head, and then I'll write it down and put them. The melody usually is already there, and then I'll just figure out the chords a little bit on the piano, but it's never exact because again, I'm not very good at it. But
So Patrick has to do all that for you.
yeah. Thank God for Patrick. But the melody, usually I'll be able to do the melody, and the arrangement also I'll typically do, but a lot of it is just editing it all down to something that's more radio friendly, if that makes sense, because we
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately or fortunately have to think about those kind of things.
Oh yeah,
Um,
for sure.
yeah, so keeping it down sort of more concise, um, more sort of thinking more of, okay, what would be a better hook,
Mhm.
and then
Right,
rewriting it or revising it until it's ready. It's a
right, right,
3 minute radio playable song.
right, right. So have you actually shopped the songs to like Christian radio stations and that sort of thing, or does
I
it just
actually
sort of?
have. I
Mm-hmm.
have. But uh, a lot of people, I had to get back to me and actually said that it was a good song.
Oh yeah.
But and it, like, oh, what, it's fresh, it sounds new and all of that. But this isn't the type of music that we play on the radio. And
Right.
the examples they gave me were, the regular Chris Tomlin,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
and that, and I was like, okay, you know what? This is just not. It's. I think my honest opinion of Christian radio is it's always behind.
Yes.
It's always sort of a couple years behind, actually, from what is actually happening in the sort of the new Christian music scene. So,
Yeah.
and that's okay. It's just, it's also because I understand too, they have to cater to sort of their audience, which might be a certain demographic that, to be honest, is probably not even interested in listening to my type of music. So I get that
Are
as
you
well.
going to say housewives?
Yeah. Although
That's
I want to
okay.
be a housewife.
Hey,
Hey,
it
I
could
will happily
happen.
be a housewife.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true that if you, it does seem like if you don't sound like Casting Crowns or Crowder or what have you, not that there's anything wrong with those guys. I listen to those guys.
100%. Yeah.
But if you don't have that sound, then you're probably going to have to find another way to get your foot in the door.
Unfortunately, yes. And
Yeah.
even when I look at like the Dove Awards or, you know, the Gospel Music Awards, everything is very much a formulaic type of sort of there's very set formulas for what Christian music is.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't fit in those molds,
Right.
you're sort of not really going to have a place in the industry. I'm not saying in the art community, because I think the art
Mm-hmm.
community is lovely, it's big, it's beautiful, but
Right.
sort of the only ones that are unfortunately right now allowed to have a platform in sort of the more bigger venues and the audiences are
Mm-hmm.
more of those formulaic or big band church type music, which
Right.
has a place. And I completely am not saying anything against them. It's just that like I don't belong in those spaces.
Right. Yeah. It's good to watch the industry and see that there's all kinds of things out there. Like there's Christian heavy metal and there's Christian rap and there's Christian dance music and
Yeah.
all that kind of thing. So there are people out there and doing that stuff, and they're finding a way to do it.
Niche. Yeah.
So it's kind of
niche.
encouraging. Yeah, exactly. It's kind of encouraging in a way, and in some ways, it may actually be better to have a kind of a unique niche rather than having a sort of a one size fits all kind of sound.
That is the goal. That is the dream. It's also more manageable, I think, to be sort of in, because I just think that you can be more authentic to your art,
Yeah.
and like your sound, and not having to sort of please everybody, but sort of, okay,
Right.
this is what I do. If you love it, thank you. If you don't, that's okay. You know.
Yeah, exactly. So you are in the recording studio this week.
Actually, tomorrow,
Yes.
literally tomorrow, I'm going to, this is the first time I'm seeing Patrick since we started working. It's just all been online. So far, I've been recording in my bedroom
Right.
with very limited equipment.
Mhm.
But tomorrow, I'm finally going to be able to do it at his sort of home studio, which will be a lot better. Because if there's another thing that I really dislike doing, it's engineering. I don't like it.
Yeah,
Do you relate with me?
totally. Like my album, I did everything myself, and it was a good learning experience. Even the drums, I rented out a studio. I placed all the microphones myself and that sort of thing, and it was neat and it was a good learning experience. But I said to myself, next time I'm just gonna get like Cherry Beach or something to do it, or whoever. Because
I'm so sorry for you, because the drums, they are the worst to mix. Like sitting there listening to a snare or a kick drum over and over and over and over again, I can't do it.
Yeah, and you're like, how much reverb should I put on the snare, and how much should I pan it? And, just leave that stuff to the.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, compressed. Oh man, it's clipping. What do I do?
Yeah, exactly. And in fact, when I was recording the drums for my album, I was at a studio and I rented a this ancient preamp from Long and McQuaid's, and it actually caught fire during the session. It was just
Oh
like a
my
little bit. I was
god.
like, okay, turn it off, let it cool down, turn it back on again. Okay, we're ready to go.
Oh
So,
man, that's
uh,
scary.
yeah, that's kind of like the ultimate like homemade
Yeah,
album
yeah.
making kind of story, right?
But you know what?
Yeah.
That's like, what is it? I can't think of the word except like battle scars. Like that's your
Yeah,
like, it's like, oh, I'm so legit now. Like,
yeah, yeah, exactly. I've been there. Yeah, exactly. But this strategy of yours is interesting. You released all this time, and now Body Soul, and another single is coming down the pike. Until I presume you have an entire album's worth of released material. So now that interests me. So what's the story behind that?
well, I am thinking about it marketing wise, and
Hmm.
I know that I'm a small artist,
Yeah.
and I think introducing myself in smaller ways
Hmm.
versus sort of one big chunk
Yeah.
will help me sort of one, develop an audience, but also two, I think help people understand what I'm doing and the art that I'm doing. And it
Hmm.
also keeps me in people's ears for a longer amount of time over just like maybe releasing one thing and then not hearing from me for another year, because that's how long it takes to make an album. And
Right.
then so it's sort of like, and I've already written album number two, which I'm gonna, it's just a way to sort of keep the momentum going versus
Hmm.
stopping and then not hearing from me. And then also I'm in a phase where I'm developing myself as an artist, and I
Hmm.
don't know what I like. I'm developing myself as an artist. So
Finding your voice.
yes, finding my voice, my style, my sound. I think up until releasing all this time, I was like, what genre am I in? I don't know. And I was driving home one day and I came across a really amazing radio show um, by, I think, uh, anyway, it was a radio show, and they were
Okay.
talking about specific genres
Hmm.
and going through breaking every genre down. And that week happened to be the week that they were talking about dream pop. And they
Oh
played some
yeah.
examples of it. And it's a sub genre of the alternative genre, which, by the way, I was a complete, like, I loved screamo. I was totally into like punk and emo scene music when I
Right.
was growing up. So I also loved sort of alternative music.
Hmm.
And then having this like sort of like subgenre of it that was beautifully like pop, but also a little bit grungy, but also like, I mean, like it was, I really resonated with that. And I'm like, oh, that's me. That actually
Hmm.
is much more me. So I'm sort of understanding myself as an artist right now. And so releasing one song at a time also helps me, I think, personally grow and
Hmm.
understand myself. Um, and I'm a small, like super small artist. So it also just, I think, helps me develop, like, you know how like when artists go into a record label, they spend years doing A&R.
Right.
It's like I'm doing A&R on myself
Right.
using these little songs at a time, being like, okay, that doesn't work, that
Yeah.
works, whatever. So we can sort of try out different things, and it's also fun at the same time. I'm having fun with it, so yeah.
That's good. That's good. The process of discovery can be like that sometimes. So if you're recording the songs as you go, are you also writing the songs as you go, or is the writing
No,
all complete?
the writing, I wrote everything during the first lockdown. and I wrote so many songs, and I curated what would be on the first and second album, which is why I was like, I actually wrote 2 albums. And then I had written 1 album initially, and then I was like, I can't do this whole thing because 1, it would take up too much time and too much of my resources, which I don't have too much. So I was like, how can I make this more tangible and more feasible for myself? So I broke them into 2, and then I was like, all right, this is the first one, this is the second one, and we're gonna go at it at a slow pace so that I can finish it.
Right. Instead of releasing a double album or something.
Well, I
remember those.
Yes, I do remember those.
Oh boy, they were a double album because you had 2 LPs.
2, yes.
Some people
we don't even get to hold anything now. It's all digital.
Yeah, exactly. So the concept of a double album doesn't even really make sense, except you have a release that's maybe longer than a normal release. But
Yeah.
Those are the times we live in, I guess.
Yeah, very different. I almost liken it to the Wild West. Like right now, it's like, who knows what's even the standard, because every standard in the industry is just not there. Like it doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, the old kind of label and album release framework is really sort of being left in the rear view mirror. And I mean, that has its pros and cons. The pros of doing things that way is, I mean, if you were accepted by $1 million company, then they could throw all their advertising bucks and all their marketing bucks at, your next tour and that sort of thing. Now, so the independent artist nowadays doesn't have that, but they have way more control over their music and what they want to release and that sort of thing than you ever had under the old studio system.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. So it's both it's on one hand, it's so easy for everyone to make music. So there's a lot of music out there, but at the same time, it's easier for people to put their music out there, which is also a good thing. Because honestly, I think that good art, no one, and who's to say what good art is, but I mean, like if it's done well, it's bound to be appreciated.
Yeah.
Whether that be a big audience or a niche audience, it's bound to be appreciated.
Yeah, exactly. But you'll notice there's still a bit of gatekeeping involved too, because like whether or not you get on some dude's Spotify playlist, it can make or break you, So.
Yes, it's weird.
I think it's kind of inevitable, but because people want to know what they're listening to or what they want to listen to and that sort of thing. You're always going to have listeners who are willing to take risks, but you're always going to have people too who just want to have something that they can rely on and that sort of thing. So I think there's always going to be a measure of gatekeeping in our line of work.
100%.
Yeah. So I'm just curious about all this time. Can we talk about that for a bit?
Oh, 100%. Yes.
Yeah. So I was interested in, largely with the video. Actually, the video and the lyrics they work very well together. There was a bit of burial imagery, if I'm reading it right, in the video. So what's that all about?
Yes. So All This Time is one of the more vulnerable songs off this album because it has a lot to do with my depression. And so the video definitely reflects that. It's sort of this it's this idea of letting go. It's this idea of letting go. So there's 2 imageries there, and that is sort of like me being submerged in the water, but then coming out of it and sort of fighting my way to sort of get my mind back, essentially, my mental health back, and my life back. I mentioned earlier about quitting music for a few years, and that was a huge part of it, was just heavy, deep depression. And hopefully, this isn't too much of a trigger, but like I had attempted suicide twice.
Right.
And that was so important for me to not just make that song pretty and beautiful, but also to show that it was about something. It was about fighting the darkness and the demons in my head that were just causing so much hurt and so much pain. So yes, it was sort of, it's interesting because I think, like, my mom, for example, she by the way, she loves the video and everything, but I think she was just really jarred and taken aback by how dark like there were. Oh, sorry about that.
Whoops.
My tripod here is
a tour of your home studio.
There we go. All right, I'm just gonna have to hold it. That's fine. So so she was sort of jarred by how dark some of the tones were, but to me, I think if it was all happy and bright, it wouldn't have reflected what that song really meant.
Right.
So it definitely is that imagery of resurrection really coming out of the water.
Right. So had you had encounters with depression before?
Not to the degree that I did in those years. I think that we all go through some sort of, like, if there was a death in the family or something happened. Yes, I would say in the past that was, but I never encountered depression to the degree that I did. This was in 2016. Maybe it started in 2016, but I think when I was really diagnosed with it was 2017, 2018. And then it took me 3 years to fully heal. And I wouldn't even say I'm fully healed.
Right.
I think it's just something we have to now deal with on a daily basis, and be more aware and know what to do about. But I definitely didn't start off that way. It was definitely something, I would describe it only as a feeling. It got to the point where it wasn't even sadness. It was just deep, agonizing emptiness that I couldn't even cry. Like it was that bad.
Yeah, and so what I heard from you is that something that kind of started the spiral, I guess, was the kind of perfectionism and ambition that was kind of, I guess, piling up in your life.
Yes, there were two things. It was sort of this idea of worthlessness and failing. So part of it was I was going through sort of quitting music. One, because I was so frustrated. I had been sort of working in the industry, also trying to make music. And at one point, this was when I had first released Body Soul, was I was walking that line of, I am an artist making music, but I'm not necessarily, like, it's Christian, but it's also not Christian, if that makes sense. Like, it could be, it's sort of a line. And it's not a good line to walk, because when you're in the music industry, I don't know how else to say this except that it's a very dark industry.
Yes.
And it's so unbelievably, like, they don't care about your talent, how good you are.
Right.
They care about a lot of other things that I didn't want to give up. And that was sort of, and I think one of the things that made it hard was seeing all these other people succeed maybe or maybe not, because they were sort of conforming to this sort of standard and I wasn't.
Yeah.
And sort of thinking that, oh, it's because I am worthless as a human
Mhm.
being and all of that. And it didn't help that I was in also a very toxic and abusive relationship
All right.
that sort of helped validate those feelings that I was going through.
Mhm.
Um, and it started off very slowly and then sort of progressed until it quickly spiraled into what it then became.
Mhm.
Um, so that is sort of how it all sort of came about.
Right.
But God is good. He doesn't
Mhm.
allow you to sort of stay in those pits for too long.
Mhm.
Um, I had some very wonderful people who God really used to save my life, essentially. Like,
Right. Right.
it's not yet something I'm necessarily able to talk about the whole story of.
Right.
Maybe in the future. But
The next interview, maybe.
yes, there we go. Next interview.
Right.
I would, yeah. But long story short, God saved my life through His people.
Mhm. Mhm. So, were you also getting professional help during this time?
Yes, and this is something I want to, I do want to talk about because I know that it's such a taboo in the Christian world sometimes
Right. Right.
to seek mental health from mental health professionals like psychiatrists and psychologists, or even to take medication.
Mhm.
Um, I did all of that because I was in a state of crisis. Like I was
Right.
literally, this is something I'm very okay to be open with because I realize that as I talk about it, it's not just me, and there's so many people who go through this and can't talk about it in church, and it's supposed to be the place that is going to love and accept us. But I was checked into a mental health facility. I was in CAMH,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
I ended up and ooh, sorry again, my technology troubles. And I was put there by the police.
Oh.
So it was literally like, I laugh about it only because I'm nervous, but
Mhm.
it was that bad. I had to take medication for a few years, and I sought the help of numerous medical professionals. I had a Christian counselor. I also
Mhm.
saw a psychiatrist. I had my family doctor, all monitoring me. Thank God, though, I was able to get off medication, which was something that I wanted to do. It's not for everyone. I think that
Right.
medication is there to help us. So if you need it, you should take it. Um,
Mhm.
I, I, I personally didn't want to be on it, and that's also okay. Like I think that that's something that people need to understand, is that it's what you need. There's no right answer or wrong
Right.
answer
No
to
one size fits all solution.
100%. So,
Yeah.
but I will encourage anyone to get all the help that you can get, because if you were sick with any other kind of illness, you
Yeah.
would do that. So why wouldn't you do that for your mind?
Right. Exactly. So, so what would you say to other believers who are faced with this problem? What kind of advice would you give them?
Um, I think it would be, and one of the things that sticks out to me is allow people to help you.
Mhm.
Um, I think, like, I sometimes we go through life thinking that's not going to happen to me,
Yeah.
and we do it sometimes subconsciously. And I remember subconsciously being one of those people, because I was the one that was helping people. I was the one that was
Mhm.
smart. I was the one
Right.
that wouldn't get myself into a situation that
Mhm.
was compromising myself,
Right.
especially when it was like in regards to my relationship.
Mhm.
Um, and what ended up happening was the shame kept me from telling people what was truly going on behind the scenes.
Right.
So, and don't blast it out to the whole world, but there
Hmm.
are people out there who truly care and
Yeah.
will very consciously help you in ways that will protect you and not and allow people in, allow people to help you seek help also. Like that's, I
Right.
guess, um my biggest advice.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, it does make sense, and you're right that there is quite a bit of stigma against depression and other mental health issues in the church. Even in the secular world, there's still kind of a stigma. So much more so in the church, but it's something that I hope that is being is sort of coming to terms with those issues, and is something that people can be more open with. There's actually a Methodist preacher by the name of Martin Lloyd-Jones who wrote a very helpful book on depression, which is something that people may want to check out. I think even sometimes when you look at some of the Psalms, you kind of wonder
Yes.
if David himself was kind of going through those same kinds of things. One thing, sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna add, not just David, but there's so many. Like I can think of Jeremiah, the prophets.
Yeah.
There's they talk about themselves going into deep despair.
Mhm.
Um, so I think those are moments where, let's be real, those were people going through literal mental health crises. So
Well, his entire city had been exiled by an enemy force. So,
yeah,
yeah.
of course
Pretty
it would
stressful.
be.
Yeah. I'm kind of curious then, when you made the decision last year to start working on your music and working on the album specifically, did you find that music making process therapeutic?
It was very much so. Especially in the beginning phase when I was just sort of alone writing the music. This was before the production phase had started. I would just sit in the quietness of my room and wait for God to come in and tell me the songs that He wanted me to write. And that is, and it also helped me make sense of what I went through.
Hmm.
Like, I'll take, for example, All This Time was a song about me processing, why did it get to that point? And it was like, what were my thought processes? It was like, wow, God, all this time I was starving for your love. And my hunger was deep because of the lies that I listened to, which is the lyrics of All This Time. But
Right, right.
that's helping me process what I went through. Um, it's also sometimes just getting it out and
Yeah,
having it tangible like that.
right.
Um, it gives it a life of its own, but it also helps you understand and become a third party
Hmm.
to look at the situation, be like, oh, okay, I get it.
Yeah, it's true. I think that songwriting and lyric writing kind of lets you examine it from the outside. You kind of can kind of look at it as almost sort of like an object, that
Yeah.
you can kind of look at. Um, Tell me about the three paths of self doubt.
The three paths of self doubt.
Hmm.
Oh, do I know this?
Well, one of them was like you can give up, or you can learn something from it. I totally
Oh,
forgot what the second one was.
yes. Oh, yes. You could give up, or you could. Is this for my blog?
It was from the BTS. This isn't a test though.
That's funny. It's funny because I will write things sometimes and I somehow blank. But yes, so it's the three paths that I was talking about in that one is you could give up, or you could keep going and
Uh-huh.
sort of not realize or not acknowledge that you were wrong or that something needed to be improved on. Or the third is to take it in stride and to
Uh-huh.
say, hey, we're going to keep going, but let's learn from our mistakes and let's look at this
Yeah.
situation and how can we make this better.
Uh-huh.
um, yeah, and that's what I'm trying to do. And that's also maybe why I'm doing one song at a time, because I'm like, okay, I need to be able to diagnose what works and what doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems to me that your process kind of had to involve maybe getting rid of those old ambitions and those old, maybe issues with pride and things like that.
Yes, 1,000%. So a little bit of background on myself. I'm classically trained.
Mhm.
Um, and I mean opera and all of that. And I went to a very, very competitive high school, and I
Mhm.
got into a conservatory um, in New York City. And to be in that world where your value is on your performance is such a hard thing to break from. I'm also
Mhm.
Asian, and I love my
Right.
parents, but it's sort of beaten into us that like you have to have the best grades, you have to be the best at everything in all that you do, and that
Mhm.
does foster a sense of pride, because if you do excel in something, then you're like, oh, I'm worthy because I'm good at this, and
Mhm.
then because I'm good at this, I deserve this, I deserve that. And then when all of those things are taken away from you, which it did happen to me, you lose yourself because you think that all of those things define you.
Right.
Um, when none of those things define you. Like, it's funny, as toxic as my relationship was, one of the things that he would tell me was, if you didn't have all of those things tomorrow, you'd still be like, I don't understand why. Although, like, this is another issue because, like, he was not very supportive of me being a
Right.
musician anyway. But one of the things was, that all of this is not you. And even though as twisted as that was, it is kind of true. If I stopped singing tomorrow, um, it doesn't really make or break me.
Right.
If I decided to go into a different ministry, like, that's not, my value isn't there. Although God giving us the talents and the gifts that
Mhm.
we have the freedom to use them.
Right. Right. Exactly. And one thing that's good to know in these kinds of contexts that, although it may not sound that way, it's that it's impossible to surprise or disappoint God.
Yes.
He knows what's coming. He
Yeah.
knows what you're going to do. So if you're looking at the standard of what do I need to do to please God, He understands the process. He knows all of our failures
1,000%.
and shortcomings. So we have peace in that aspect because we want to give our best to God and we want to really give Him the glory, but yet at the same time we know that our shortcomings don't faze Him. Nothing catches Him by surprise.
1,000%. And God's providence is bountiful, and it's beyond what we can do. Like, the things that he could do, it doesn't matter. Our failures literally don't matter because he's
Right,
going to use those anyway. If
right.
that, it's like you are free to follow God, because even if you fail, he will use that for his glory.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you did mention that too about before about how how disappointment or as how self-doubt and such can be actually a good thing.
Yes. Yes. I actually think it is, because it keeps us from being complacent.
Hmm.
and keeps us trusting in God.
That's true.
And that's something that's so important in anything that we do, because if we're not trusting in God through something, then it's born out of our own abilities.
Yes.
And it's born out of our own, for lack of a better word, pride.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you had mentioned too something about like musical ability and pride, and those are like you were saying about accusations being thrown at you, and that's that can be hard to take. But you know, like, but it's like a silly remark. Like, there's all kinds of people in the scriptures that had these God-given abilities and talents. The people that, you know, worked on the temple and that sort of thing. So, I mean, pride is something that we should always be careful of and aware of. But you know, we can be good at something and still not have a big ego about it too.
Yes, yes. And I think if I did have pride, it was never to the sense of, oh, I'm better than a person, a specific
Right.
person. It was never like that. It was more of like a pride towards God, actually, which arguably is worse, because it's like, I did this because one of the things was like, I worked hard in school for you, God. Why didn't you do this? Da da da. You know, it was
Right.
But I would get comments like, oh yeah, you know, it's one thing to be prideful, and then it's another thing to take joy and take delight in your abilities. And like, I enjoy singing. Why can't I enjoy singing? Why do I have to enjoy singing? If I enjoy singing, does that make me proud? Like,
Yeah,
know?
exactly. We're still actually talking about all this time. So the video I noticed ended with the imagery of you being on the ground and getting up. And so does that speak to like literally getting up when you're down kind of thing, that message of soldiering on?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. As simple as that is, that's what it is.
Good to know. So is there anything you can tell us about the next single coming up?
Yes, there's a lot. This one, I can even tell you the name. It's called Fight for Your Love.
Okay.
This one was not written by me.
Okay.
Well, it's sort of co-written, just the second verse. This one was a song by my friend Melissa Hale. And yeah, I interact with her a lot on Instagram and on my social media. So this was a song that she had written. And it was something that when she wrote it, the story goes, is she just felt like it was not for her, and she wanted to give it to me. Like, I was the person that she wanted to give it to, and I fell in love with the song, and I had to just have it in the album. But it's in the same vein of sort of keeping on, keeping going, although it is also a love song. So yeah, that, and yeah, it's also sort of it sounds very different from All This Time and Body Soul. It's sort of a more
driving drums, punk, distorted guitars.
Yes. Oh my gosh, you hit
wow. Looking forward to that. That was just kind of my wish list. I didn't know I was going to be right.
That's so funny, but with a twist.
Oh yes. Okay. Well, I guess we'll see what the twist is then.
Yes, it's sprinkle in a little dream pop in there.
Ah, okay. This is going to be interesting for sure then. All right. So I'm all out of questions. So is there anything else you want to add for people who are tuning in?
Hello, and thank you for tuning in. Thank you for tuning into Led by the Shepherd. I am so grateful for this interview. If you guys could check out my Spotify or actually anywhere that you stream your music, just search my name up, Shikaina Jacob. It's the only Shikaina that's spelled the way that it is, so it shouldn't be too hard. It's
Good
spelled
stuff.
wrong. Shikaina is supposed to be spelled something completely different, and my parents misspelled it, so now I have a unique Shikaina name, which I'm grateful for.
Lucky you.
I know. And then, yeah, also on YouTube. Yeah, that is it.
Great. Well, thanks for stopping by and answering some of our questions. And yes, please check out Shikaina's work on your favorite streaming platform of choice. And have a blessed day. And we'll see you guys later.
Yay. Bye.
Take care, guys.